Resident Evil 4 Remake has 39 achievements for 1,000 gamer score. According to trueachievements.com, it takes 60 to 80 hours to complete. Yeah, I was a little north of that. But this isn't the most optimal way to 1,000-point RE4. This is the story of how I 1,000-pointed what I can confidently say is my game of 2023. I was so excited for this game that I took 3 days off work just to play through it. I started my first playthrough on Standard. I wanted to see if I could knock out the miscellaneous achievements, along with the story, the merchant requests, and the collectibles. Tall order, but basically having one long playthrough to make the rest shorter. And I did some of that. I started around 11 o'clock on the 23rd, because you don't have to wait till midnight in Canada. I got through the first chapter and parried with the knife for my first achievement, and then I promptly went to bed around 12 because I'm old now. I picked up where I left off around 7 o'clock on the 27th and got a couple easy achievements like doing a request, purchasing a weapon upgrade, and taking out the even shorter version of Salazar. I knocked another easy one out by flashbanging the crows, which, if you haven't got this one yet, do it this way. Trust me. I also started taking on the shooting ranges as they came up. I'll need all S ranks for the Real Deadeye achievement. So, I got 3 S ranks, and while I did that, an achievement popped up for playing around in the gallery. Then I took on Del Lago, which nabbed me the Harpoon Hunter achievement. And thank you so much, Capcom, for not making an achievement tied to not missing a spear, because I still haven't got that challenge. After that, I rescued Ashley. Then I promptly lost her. Also, I could rescue her again for the Talk About Near-Death Experiences achievement. Spoilers. This is not going to be the last time that Ashley gets captured. After that, I took out Chief Mendez, and it was on to the castle, which led me to my first miss of the run. I was trying to get all the treasures this playthrough. I even tried using the treasure map, but I did end up missing a couple in the village, so I'll have to deal with that in another playthrough. But the castle will be different, right? I started off the castle section by shooting a zealot with a cannon for the overkill achievement. After that, I took out Mr. Eyes Wide Shut with only a knife, which was more time-consuming than hard. And yeah, Mr. Eyes Wide Shut, that's his name now. Now, my second miss of the playthrough came at the Ashley section, where you need to unlock chests. I missed this one because, I don't know, Magic Knights are terrifying, so again, I'll have to get those treasures on my second playthrough. But I still made decent progress on day 2 with 10 achievements unlocked. Day 3, I started with chapter 10, where the game gets noticeably harder. We'll circle back, but this is, in my opinion, the hardest chapter in the entire game. But I got through it, and took out Sadler's right hand for my first achievement of the day. After that, I spent about 40 minutes running through the minecart segment, where I had to get through without taking any damage to either of my minecarts, which meant hit every archer immediately, and if you miss, back to the start. But like everything in this game, the more you do it, the better you'll be. And finally, I got through it. And honestly, I'm glad I did it this way. This helped me just to blitz through the mines in my subsequent playthroughs. Now, all the treasures I was getting weren't wasted, because it allowed me to get the Astute Appraiser achievement for selling the crown for 100,000, which I did in nearly every playthrough, and I think you should too. Really helps out with the cash flow. On top of that, I had been doing every request, so I had the spindles to buy the upgrade tickets and upgraded my Red 9. You know, before they added exclusive upgrade tickets, which, trust me, we're going to get to later. In Chapter 12, there's an elevator, which you can prevent zealots from jumping on to get the Capacity Compliance achievement. Now, I was lucky to even finish this section on my first run, so I left it for another run. After that, we got to Salazar, who, in this game, is much less annoying, but to me, he's what the rocket launchers are for, so I blasted him in the face and headed to the island. Also, I gotta say, it is beyond satisfying that Leon actually shoots people this time. Well done, Capcom. But I shouldn't have done that because there was a secret achievement for throwing a grenade into his mouth that I missed because, I was too busy jamming it with a rocket. But it was the end of day 3, and we made some decent headway with 5 achievements. Day 4, I started off on the island. With a new area meant new shooting range challenges. I had S rank the first 2 areas, but at this point, I'd been playing for 3 days straight. So honestly, I just wanted to be done with this campaign. So this was going to be yet another thing I was going to come back to. But while I was there, I did get 5 targets with the Punisher for the trick shot achievement. I was still plugging away at the requests, and while I was doing one, I managed to get 2 bugs, 1 stone for taking out 2 parasites with 1 shot, which I was happy about because the regenerators are absolutely terrifying. Ugh. I said Chapter 10 was the hardest chapter, but honestly, Chapter 14 isn't far behind it. I struggled through the waste disposal and the crane sections, but eventually I made it to Krauser, who I gotta say, even better than the original fight. Chapter 14 didn't give me too much trouble, but we've still got plenty of time for that to change. After that, I completed the last request for the merchant for the Jack of all trades achievements. Also, Capcom, stop making me shoot blue medallions. Like, what are we doing? The last thing I did was get the island treasures. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little choked about the castle, so I cheated and used a guide. It just goes to show that cheaters always prosper. Remember that for later. After that, I took out Sadler, and then it was time for the Smooth Escape achievement, which basically meant I couldn't take any damage on the last section of the game. I decided I was just going to do this on my first run so I can blitz through it on my speed runs. This one wasn't too bad. Took me about 20 minutes, but eventually I got it. With that, my longest playthrough by far was over. It took me 23 hours and 43 minutes and 3 days of real time. Now, I did make substantial progress. I nabbed 24 out of the 39 achievements. But now, we're entering the hard part of this 1,000 points. Those last 15 achievements would make up the rest of my over 100 hours, with some of them even requiring their own playthroughs. I was just getting started. But there was no time to rest, so I immediately started my first hardcore playthrough. The goal of this run was to knock out the remaining treasures and get all the little Salazars. So, back to the guide I went. This time, there was really no problems in the village, nabbing myself the bandit achievement, but I was back working, so it took me until the 27th. This is where you're going to start to see a gap. There are going to be days without getting achievements because I was either working through an achievement or, doing life stuff. Case in point, it took me 2 days to go through the castle and get the burglar achievement for getting all the treasures. I had similar troubles with the elevator this run, because hardcore, so I decided to leave it until I had an infinite ammo weapon and, wasn't on hardcore. Afterwards, I shut Salazar up with a grenade, which might be the most satisfying achievement in the game. Then it was back to the island, where I continued to grind through getting the Salazar statues and blasting my way through the literal army between me and Ashley. While I did have some struggles, I also had the resources to manage as I was stopping to pick everything up this run. But fatigue really started to set in around Chapter 15. I was on my 7th day playing this game, and honestly, I just wanted this run to be over.
So I completely forgot about the last 2 statues, which meant, another playthrough.
But this run had to be over today. So I rocketed Sadler and escaped the island on my second playthrough, which nabbed me the Proficient Agent achievement. The second playthrough was shorter, coming in just over 15 hours, but it still took me 3 days for 4 achievements. But we also turned a corner. With most of the collectibles done, that means no more long playthroughs. The upcoming runs will all be shorter because of the work I loaded into the front end. I won't lie, hardcore drained me, but at the same time, I knew I would never be sharper. So, I started my second hardcore run, which would be easily the hardest run in my 1,000 points. Run 3 was my second hardcore run, but what was different this time is I basically needed to cut my time in half to under 8 hours for the Sprinter achievement. which means I really had to prioritize what treasures and what items I got. If it's out of the way, it's not getting picked up. But I was saving up for the infinite rocket launcher, so I couldn't cut treasures out entirely. Now this is where my 30 hours of experience came in. At this point, I knew what was worth getting and what was worth skipping. The other thing speedruns affect is the amount of resources you're collecting. So ammo and health became more of a commodity because I wasn't stopping to pick everything up. Now this run is why I say Chapter 10 is the hardest in the game. I was barely holding on before I made it into the room with all the buggers. Yeah, that's also what they're called now. I scraped through only to deal with Mr. Eyes Wide Shut and his new friend, and on top of that, a room full of zealots. I died, and I died, and I died, and I died, and I died. The main strategy is just to try to cling on to life while luring Mr. Eyes Wide Shut to try to take out as many enemies for you as you can. But the challenge is, you still have to avoid both. Then, when all the regular zealots are done, you have to take them out. Now, I am convinced this is why the bolt launcher exists, because it allows you to do explosive damage with the attachable mines, but at the same time, because it's silent, it doesn't trigger the enemies. This is how I made it through. Now, the other big hurdle of this run were the Ashley segments in Chapter 14. I must have lost 40, 50, 60 minutes in the waste disposal area between the Iron Maiden and the Ganados capturing Ashley, or me shooting Ashley in this section. Honestly, it was brutal. Eventually, I found out that you can kill the 3 Ganados before you trigger the Iron Maiden. Then you kill the Iron Maiden, and if you do it fast enough, you can stop the last Ganado, who by this point has most likely grabbed Ashley. But it pales in comparison to the freaking Wrecking Ball segment, which is basically another log cabin as they send wave after wave after wave at you. But the problem is, Ashley doesn't have the luxury of hiding this segment, so they can attack her too. This pushed me to the literal brink, but eventually, I managed to pull through with the skin of my teeth and some well-placed flash grenades. Now this led me to Krauser, who taught me the most valuable lesson in the run. I was in the red in the segment where Krauser gets his knife arm and he lunges at you, and I couldn't stop him. Then I remembered the parry, which admittedly, I wasn't using as much as I should have. It took me a couple of tries, but this is where I really learned to parry. And with a couple of Magnum rounds, that brought me to Chapter 15. While I did struggle with the 2 switch segments, it was nothing I couldn't overcome with the lessons I learned. And this is the playthrough where I really learned the strategies that would carry my speed runs. And this is what makes Resident Evil games so good. It's that compounding knowledge you get, run after run after run, the muscles you develop getting out of those tricky encounters. But my muscles were sore. It took 4 days to get here. So after I took out the last tiny Salazar, I just bought a rocket launcher, and that was my 3rd playthrough. Now, this one took me significantly less time at just over 7 hours, and that did unlock me the Sprinter achievement, but more importantly, it unlocked the suit of armor for Ashley. The suit of armor is so important because it prevents Ashley from either being grabbed or getting damaged. If you want to do the harder runs, you can't worry about Ashley, so this is going to make every run following this easier. On top of that, I got the primal knife for destroying all the tiny Salazars. Now what's important about that is you can upgrade that knife to make it indestructible, so I don't have to worry about repairing my knife anymore. But after basically playing RE4 straight for 12 days, I needed a break. So I played some Civ for a couple of days to recharge my batteries. When I finally came back to RE4, it was April 6th, 15 days from launch. Because of my break, I knew I had to warm myself up. So I dropped the difficulty down to assisted. With my new primal knife and my fully upgraded Red 9, went for the minimalist achievement, which meant only using my pistol and knife for the whole run. Now this run did have a secondary goal. I was still saving up for the infinite ammo rocket launcher, which I would need not only for the future runs, but for the Gun Fanatic achievement as well. Purchasing 2 rocket launchers for 2 back-to-back playthroughs, along with upgrading my guns, had left me short. But since I didn't have to get an A rank, I took my time. With the 20% off charm I got earlier, I got it. and then I promptly boxed it. Honestly, this run went pretty smoothly. I had aim assist, enemies did less damage, plus I've gone pretty good with the Red 9 after 3 runs, so nothing really slowed me down. I did try to get the capacity compliant achievement, but I just couldn't do it with the pistols, so yet again, I left it for another run. Are you starting to see a theme here? But between Ashley's suit of armor and it being assisted, I finished my run April 8th just shy of 7 hours. That earned me the Minimalist achievement. At this point, we've reached my 5th run, and honestly, I needed to blow off some steam. So I loaded up a professional save and my newly acquired infinite ammo rocket launcher for some good old-fashioned revenge. The goal of this run was to beat the game on professional and not talk to the merchant, knocking out 2 achievements in 1 run. Now, the main difference between hardcore and professional difficulty is that if you die, you can't load a checkpoint, you've got to go back to your last save. It's kind of like the ink ribbons from Classic RE. Now, this mostly wasn't an issue because of the infinite rockets, but I did forget to save before the first fight with Krauser, which sent me back to the minecarts. But honestly, that was the worst of the run. This was the run where I also started using more speedrunner strats, like shooting the bell in the village, using a grenade on the farm door, shooting the weight for the cannon, and blowing up the anti-air gun. But my personal favorite has to be the Wrecking Ball skip, which is the only reason Chapter 14 isn't the hardest in the game. On top of that, every boss was one-shotted, which, saves time. This run was honestly the most fun I've had in this game since my first run. I did this in only 2 sittings, finishing just a day later in under 4 hours, knocking out the Peerless achievement and the Silent Stranger achievements. But most importantly, this unlocked me the Chicago Sweeper, which you can upgrade with exclusive upgrade tickets for infinite ammo. Now this is where I lucked out. I completed this run on April 9th, and on April 7th, Capcom added the Mercenaries DLC, which added 2 things that made my life drastically easier. The first of which was an easier way to get the hand cannon, which I needed for the Gun Fanatic achievement. I'll get to that in a bit. The second was far more crucial. They added paid DLC where you can buy exclusive upgrade tickets. Normally, you get those in the game by waiting until Chapter 7, doing a bunch of requests so you can buy them for 30 spindles. Or you could just spend $10 and get them in Chapter 2. Seriously, this made this run so much easier, and I am not above taking any advantage I can get, and boy, I took advantage. So, with my upgrade tickets in tow, I immediately started my first S Plus rank in Standard. For the S Plus ranks, you need to start a new save, so no New Game Plus. You need to beat the game in under 5 hours and 30 minutes, which basically means using all those speedrun strats and mowing down anything that moves with the infinite ammo Chicago Sweeper. Now, you can also only save a maximum of 15 times, which I didn't know until Chapter 3 and like 6 saves in. Strategic saving is so important for these runs because if you die and hit continue, your timer doesn't reset. So if you don't want to take that time penalty, you've got to load your last save. So because of this oversight, I had to go 3 or 4 chapters without saving. Then when I did save, be really strategic with where and when I did so. I 100% saved before Chapter 10, and while the Chicago Sweeper helped, I did lose lives to Mr. Eyes Wide Shut. Past that, I still plowed through the game, beating it in just over 4 hours for my second playthrough in 1 day and the mission accomplished achievement. The next day, I popped in Mercenaries, got 3 S ranks with Leon, which unlocked the hand cannon, and that was the Gun Fanatic achievement. This DLC saved me easily the most difficult playthrough because before it came out, the only way you can unlock the hand cannon was by beating Professional without any bonus weapons. I know this may irritate some of you who managed to unlock the hand cannon and the S Plus ranks without doing this. And all I'll say is, you're awesome. I respect your runs, and yes, you are a better Resident Evil 4 player than I am. And everybody's gonna know that the people who 1,000 pointed RE4 before Mercenaries are the real OGs. So I tip my hats off to you guys. With that said, I only had 4 more achievements to go. The end was in sight. I decided to tackle the one I was the most nervous about, the one that had the potential to stop me dead in my tracks, the real Deadeye achievement for getting S ranks in all the shooting ranges. I got about 7 in my first run, but that still left 5 to go. I am notoriously bad at trial modes where you basically have to run them over and over and over again. But I've come too far to look back now. And honestly, it was easier and exactly how hard I thought it'd be. The first 2 took me a couple tries, but I was able to muscle through. Then I hit the Red 9 accuracy course, where I basically had to shoot dynamite out of the hands of moving pirates in 10 shots or less. This is where I was beaten. I can't shoot that fast and accurately. The dozens of hours I have put into this game have been for nothing. I went to bed that night. I tossed, I turned, until I woke up at 5 a.m. I knew that it was time to put up or shut up, and I got on my second try. So only 2 more left. 4A was challenging, but I managed to knock it out in a few tries. Then I loaded 4C and realized the Red 9 stage was nothing. I had to shoot 100 targets while switching between 4 weapons. I thought it was impossible. Every other stage I S-ranked required me to get into the bonus round to do it. The only way I could get in the bonus round was to hit all 100 targets. I was at best hitting 80, but I came too far. So I looked up a guide for tips and I saw that they did it without getting into the bonus round. This was actually possible. With that and 3 coffees at that point, I got it done in a few tries after. The absolute feeling of euphoria when I got this achievement was staggering. I knew that I was actually going to be able to do this. It was 6 a.m., April 11th, and I was beyond hyped. So I launched back into the main menu and I got started on my last S Plus playthrough. This time on hardcore. I managed my saves more frugally this time. So basically, I saved right before what I thought was going to be the hardest part in that level, meaning that if I died, I could just reload my saves and not lose too much time. Between that and the Chicago Sweeper, I made quick work of the village. The castle was a bit more of a challenge. The water room got a little intense, and I died about 3 times in my favorite room, but more or less, I was on pace to do this. But I screwed up in the mines. I decided to save before the first boss fight with Krauser and made a second file which actually used up another one of my saves. Meaning, I had to go through chapter 15 without saving so I could save before Sadler. But despite a couple of deaths on the Chopper Mike section, I was still on track to get this done. I continued my tradition of rocketing Sadler in the face, and after a couple of runs on the Skidoo, I was done with my last challenging run at 4 hours and 36 minutes. This got me an S Plus rank, which unlocked me the chicken hat, which reduced my overall damage. So for my last assisted run, which was no healing, I dusted off my infinite Chicago Sweeper, rocket launcher, and primal knife for one last run. But before I finished this run, it was time for the capacity compliance achievement. I used the sweeper. I memorized every enemy pattern, and in 3 tries, it was done. The no healing with the chicken hat wasn't hard to do, though I did take some stupid hits. I even got into the red, but this game will heal you to yellow, so I was able to make this my fastest run in just over 3 hours. And with that, me, my chicken hat, and the president's daughter, clad in armor, drove off into the sunset. And that was my 42nd game that I've 100%ed on Xbox, and this one felt good. I finished April 16th, 25 days after starting, and it was quite the journey. There were highs, there were lows, there were moments where I thought I couldn't keep going, but I persevered. But it's not the points that matter. It's the memories you have of rising to the occasion. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what game you think I should 100% next in the comments. If you want to see my next video, subscribe and like the video. Until next time, I'm Sergeant Dutch, and I 100% games.